Why did he call himself a god? Some footballers become famous because they win. Others become famous because they score. Zlatan Ibrahimović became famous because he refused to be ordinary. People called him arrogant. They laughed when he said things like, asterisk, lions don't compare themselves to humans. Asterisk, they thought it was ego. They thought it was arrogance. But what if they were wrong? What if that confidence wasn't born in stadiums, but in a place where nobody expected him to succeed? A place where talent meant nothing, unless you believed in yourself first. This isn't the story of a football player who thought he was a god. It's the story of a boy who learned that when the world refuses to believe in you, believing in yourself becomes the only way to survive. Nobody believed him, long before the trophies, before the headlines, before the world knew his name. There was Rosengård, a neighborhood on the edge of Malmo. Life there wasn't easy. Money was tight. The streets were rough. And every day felt like another fight to prove you belonged. Football became Zlatan's escape, not because it promised fame, but because it was the one place where nobody could decide who he was. He played for hours, sometimes until the sun disappeared, sometimes long after everyone else had gone home. Coaches saw talent, but they also saw a boy who was stubborn, hot-tempered, impossible to control. Many believed that attitude would ruin his future. They saw the problem. Zlatan saw the possibility. Looking back, it's easy to admire his confidence. But back then, it wasn't confidence. It was necessity, because when nobody expects you to succeed, believing in yourself isn't arrogance. It's the first step to survival. Nobody could control him. As Zlatan grew older, his talent became impossible to ignore. Malmo FF gave him the opportunity every young player dreams of. But talent wasn't the problem. His attitude was. He questioned coaches. He ignored expectations. He played with flair when others wanted simplicity. To some, he looked fearless. To others, he looked impossible to manage. People kept saying the same thing. Asterisk, if he doesn't change, he'll never make it. Asterisk, but Zlatan had spent his entire life hearing people tell him who he should become. He was done listening. He wasn't trying to be different. He was simply refusing to become someone else. That decision came with a price. It brought criticism, arguments, doubt, but also became the foundation of everything that followed. Because somewhere beyond Sweden, a club was watching. They didn't see a problem. They saw a player brave enough to play his own game. And that changed everything. The world finally looked up. In 2001, Zlatan left Sweden for Ajax. It was the biggest step of his career. A new country, a new language, a new level of football. For the first time, every mistake was magnified. Every touch was judged. Every training session was a test. But something felt different. Ajax hadn't signed Zlatan to change him. They had signed him because of who he already was. While others questioned his style, Ajax embraced it. He was still unpredictable, still daring, still attempting skills most players wouldn't even imagine. Sometimes they failed. Sometimes they left an entire stadium speechless. Then came one unforgettable goal. For defenders beaten, one calm finish. In a matter of seconds, the football world saw what Ajax had seen all along. Zlatan wasn't trying to entertain people. He simply saw football differently. And now, the biggest clubs in Europe were finally looking his way. When two geniuses refused to change. By 2009, Zlatan had conquered almost every challenge in front of him. Then Barcelona called, the best striker in Europe, joining the best team in Europe. It looked like the perfect match. For a while it was. Zlatan scored. Barcelona won. But beneath the victories, something wasn't working. Pep Guardiola saw football as a system. Every player had a role. No one stood above the team. Zlatan saw football differently. To him, the greatest players weren't meant to fit the system. They were meant to change it. Neither man lacked talent. Neither man lacked ambition. They simply believed in two different versions of football. As the season went on, the distance between them grew. The conversations became shorter. The trust became weaker. It wasn't one argument that broke them. It was everything they never said. For the first time in his career, Zlatan wasn't being judged for what he could do. He was being asked to become someone he wasn't. And that was one thing he had never learned. To stop being himself. The day everything changed. Silence can be louder than an argument. As the season wore on, the distance between Zlatan and Guardiola became impossible to ignore. There were no public fights, no dramatic notes, just fewer conversations, fewer explanations, and a growing feeling that something had already been decided. For Zlatan, that was the hardest part. He could accept criticism, he could accept being dropped, but he couldn't accept being ignored. Years later, reflecting on his time in Barcelona, he summed it up with one unforgettable line. Asterisk, you bought a Ferrari, but you drove it like a Fiat. Asterisk, it wasn't really about tactics, or even about Barcelona. It was about identity. He believed the club had signed him for the player he was, then tried to turn him into someone else. Soon after, he left. Many called it the biggest setback of his career. History would call it something very different. They thought it was over. When Zlatan left Barcelona, many believed they had seen the best of him. They were wrong. He didn't disappear. He reinvented himself. In Paris, he became the face of a new era. In England, people said he was too old. He answered with goals. Then came the injury, the kind that ends careers. Doctors questioned if he would ever return the same player. The critics finally thought they had their answer, but they had underestimated him once again. Because Zlatan had never relied on talent alone. Talent made him special. His mindset made him unstoppable. He fought his way back. He kept scoring. He kept winning. Even as the years passed, he refused to let age decide who he could be. By the time he retired, people were no longer asking whether Zlatan was finished. They were asking how someone could stay extraordinary for so long. And maybe that was the answer they had been searching for all along. Why did he call himself a god? People spent years calling Zlatan arrogant. Maybe they were looking at the wrong part of the story. Confidence wasn't something he found after success. It was something he built long before anyone believed in him. Long before the trophies. Long before the headlines. Long before the world knew his name. When you grow up in a place where doubt is everywhere, believing in yourself isn't ego. It's survival. Maybe that's why Zlatan always sounded so certain. Not because he thought he was above everyone else, but because he knew what it felt like when nobody believed in him. And perhaps that's why his story still matters. Because sooner or later, everyone faces a moment when the world says, asterisk, you're not enough. Asterisk, what happens next depends on whose voice you choose to believe. Maybe Zlatan's greatest victory was never proving the world wrong. Maybe it was refusing to let the world decide who he could become.